For more on all of this, I spoke to Al Jazeera's Jane Arraf in Baghdad. Welcome, Jane. What do today's attacks, the targets, the locations, tell us about the reemergence of this Sunni insurgent group, al-Qaeda in Iraq?
Well, basically, Margaret, it tells us that they have a pretty good reach, because if you look at those targets and the sheer scope of them, the number of them, the fact that they do appear to have some organizational ability to coordinate, it tells us that they are indeed still there. Now, the targets are pretty much the same as they have been. They're military, they're police, they're Shias, ordinary people. But essentially, al-Qaeda says it is coming back, and it says it's coming back in those areas where some of the attacks were today. Those includes areas outside of Baghdad and what was called the Baghdad Belt, which was traditionally an al-Qaeda stronghold and a lifeline for al-Qaeda for its attacks in the capital. Others were in Kirkuk, part of the disputed territories. What they really seem to be doing is taking advantage of the chaos that still exists in a lot of places in Iraq.
And what are its aims, its objectives?
It aims to launch, to create an Islamic State, a center of the Caliphate. And one of the capitals would be in Baghdad. It repeats that again in the latest statement that we've heard. It also wants to take advantage of this sectarian tension that still exists. And while Iraq is nowhere near the sectarian violence that it was a few years ago, it's really evolved quite a lot since then, there still is tension there. It wants to foster civil war again. The targets have been predominantly Shia targets, apart from the security forces. They do aim at Shias and they aim at pilgrims. And they're hoping to restart the sectarian violence by provoking Shia militias to come out and fight them again in the streets, the same way they did a few years ago.
Well, what is the latest state of play within the government among these rival groups, the Shiites and Sunnis and Kurds? Is this uptick in violence believed to be related to that?
When you talk to people in the street, they genuinely believe it. And even more disturbing than believing that the chaos that exists in government helps foster this climate where al-Qaeda can flourish, they actually believe that political parties are behind some of the violence. But certainly the political paralysis doesn't help. We're talking about a government that has no defense minister, it has no interior minister. The main leaders don't even talk to each other. There's an active campaign to unseat the prime minister. I recently spoke with the Kurdish president, Masoud Barzani, and he held out very little hope for reconciliation with Prime Minister Maliki. In fact, they're talking on both sides about an escalation of tension. There are a lot of problems here, and it certainly doesn't help create the climate where security is flourishing.
And how capable are the Iraqi security forces now with the U.S. gone? I mean, if al-Qaeda in Iraq delivers on its threat to keep increasing the level of attacks, can Iraqi forces handle it?
That is really the question. And when we're talking about handling things like car bombs or suicide bombs, it's impossible to actually prevent them. So really the way that they've been able to make gains against al-Qaeda has been through intelligence gathering, about finding out how these networks operate and taking down some of the main operators, cutting off their finances, disrupting their communications. That was one of the things that Iraqi forces were able to do quite well when the American forces were here. When the Americans left, they left. They took away their technology, they took away their help in intelligence gathering, and Iraq seems to have paid a price for it. They've lost a lot of their ability to basically gather and assess intelligence, and that has been one of the main ways that they've had to fight al-Qaeda.
Finally, how is the turmoil in Syria affecting Iraq's security?
Officials here are very worried. Now, that was part of the reason that they essentially closed the border to Syrian refugees. They said they couldn't handle refugees coming across the western border because they couldn't care for them, but also, according to the government spokesman, they were worried about the security implications. When there's security vacuums along the borders, you open up those borders and you don't know what will happen. And Syria itself has said that al-Qaeda exists there. We've seen some evidence of the hallmarks of the kind of operations that they normally engage in. So it does seem clear that al-Qaeda has relocated in some sense to Syria. Now, the Iraqis are afraid that they'll come back across the border and create the kind of conflict and dissension and sectarian fighting that they managed to do so well just a few years ago.
Jane Arraf of Al Jazeera, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.